Thank you so much, Professor Sagit Bar-Gill, for tuning in all the way from Tel Aviv, I believe. I know it's quite a time difference.
Yeah, almost 11 p.m.
Sagit's going to be talking about when small businesses become data-driven. Sagit's an assistant professor of technology management and information systems at the Collar School of Management in Tel Aviv. She earned a PhD and MA in economics and BSc in mathematics from Tel Aviv University, and she is a digital fellow at both the Stanford Digital Economy Lab and the MIT Initiative on the Digital Economy. So Sagit, take it away.
Thank you, Christy. So this work is titled When Small Businesses Become Data-Driven, a field experiment on eBay. And this is joint work with Eric and with Nir Haq, who is now at Uber. And you know, we're living in the data era. Firms are investing heavily in big data infrastructure and analytics capabilities. But how can we precisely measure the impact of data and data-driven decision-making on firm performance? So in the interest of kind of being brief, I'm going to say DDD a lot throughout this presentation. That is data-driven decision-making. In this work, we're going to use this neat field experiment setting to get a causal estimate of the effect of DDD. And we're also going to get at who benefits most from DDD and how. So previous research has found that DDD is associated with between 3 and 6% increases in output and productivity, depending on the setting. But all this work was based on observational data because usually we can't exogenously treat firms with different DDD levels. This is something they choose on their own, right? But fortunately for us, eBay has created a DDD treatment with its launch of a tool called Seller Hub. So let me tell you about Seller Hub. Seller Hub is a seller dashboard that basically provides access to previously available functionality that sellers use all the time, like orders and listings, etc. But is also infused with a lot of data, data-driven suggestions, performance reports, tailored recommendations. And you can see here from eBay's own kind of marketing materials for Seller Hub that they're really kind of pushing this angle as a new feature of Seller Hub. And as I said, lucky for us, Seller Hub was rolled out using eBay's experimentation platform. This was in 2016. At the time, the target was B2C sellers. And access was gradually ramped up with random assignments to ramp up groups. Okay, and this will let us estimate the causal impact of Seller Hub. But since we want to view Seller Hub as a DDD treatment, we want to verify that it really is about the data, that this really is a DDD enhancing tool. We established this with a survey. We reached out to eBay's seller experience team and we asked them to add to their seller experience survey these questions that get at DDD that we borrowed from the DDD section of the MOPS. This is the Management and Organizational Practices survey that the US Census Bureau fields. And this gives us more data on how sellers are perceiving their data availability, data use, and how they report on their monitoring practices, which we can't get at all this from looking at eBay's data, field data. This is really just highlights from the analysis of the survey. What we see here is we build the DDD indicator and DDD index based on previous work from Eric and Christina McElherron. This DDD metrics basically represent having both high data availability, high data use, and high performance monitoring levels. And if we focus on the left panel, what we see in the blue are Seller Hub adopters, the red bars are non-adopters, and we see their DDD indicator from before Seller Hub started to roll out, and then again 3 months after the rollout completed. And what we see is a really large increase in DDD for those who adopt Seller Hub, and this kind of lets us feel more comfortable in saying that Seller Hub is indeed a DDD enhancing tool. And now we move to our main analysis. This is based on weekly level panel data for over 120,000 B2C sellers. I'm going to show you our results for the impact of Seller Hub access on their weekly sales. Our framework is a staggered or dynamic difference in difference model where we compare pre and post Seller Hub sales for treated versus later treated groups. And in the interest of time, let's just focus on this neat event study graph. And what you can see here is the impact of Solar Hub access in the weeks prior to and post treatment date. And what we see is that the Solar Hub effect is indeed positive 3 to 4% in the first 5 weeks, then increases a little bit further from week 6 onwards. And this is our causal DDD impact on e-retailers' performance. We see that in the pre-period, the effect is 0. This is part of our sanity checks. And shows us that the parallel trends assumption is indeed valid for our definitive model. And then we are reminded that, of course, we want to see why this happens and how this happens. And we go to the literature and we see that management practices and analytical skills matter. And these should moderate the effect of getting access to this data tool, right? So sellers need to be able to use and have the right skills to get the value from data. Surprisingly, these skills are sometimes lacking. In a recent Deloitte survey, 67% of execs who work with data reported that they're not comfortable accessing or using data from their tools or resources. I found this kind of shocking. Indeed, when we look at our adopters, at Solar Hub adopters, we find, and we look at how they're using the Solar Hub tabs that have these performance reports and graphs, the really data rich and components of Solar Hub, and how they engage with these features. And what we see is that if we look at all adopters, the Solar Hub impact is positive 0.1%. But then we look at those in the top 50% levels of monitoring, the effect increases to 5.1% and increases further in the top quartile is over 7% positive impact on sales. So monitoring really matters. I think maybe I'm kind of over time. So we go back to our survey where we managed to also add some questions on how sellers understand and use graphs from Solar Hub in their decision making. And we construct this metric that represents skills, and we find that it's a really strong predictor of increases in data-driven decision-making, and it's more strongly associated with increases in DDD than, say, seller education or other characteristics. So skills are also really important here. And that's it. This is basically the highlights of our study. There's much more in the paper. We do find a causal effect of DDD on e-retailers' performance. This is an effect on small businesses. This is important to mention because in most observational studies, this segment is neglected. It's not well represented in previous work. And we see the importance of managerial skills and practices for generating value from data.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. We did get a couple of comments and questions in the chat. Just for time, I'm going to read them myself. So Sarah was saying, it looks like there's it's continuing to go up. And what do you think if you extrapolate to a later time period? Do you think it continues to increase or eventually plateaus? But in the same vein, Rachel was asking, well, it looked like it was already going up. So just kind of curious what the regression says.
Yeah. So I don't know. Like it really was solid around 0 in the pre-period. We did on more robustness tests on that I wasn't showing you in the slides, of course. So it doesn't feel like it was significantly going up before. There was a change in the trend. I only have 2016 data, so I don't have a lot of insight into what's going on after that. And I can't extrapolate well, but this is a really good comment, something to think about. But yeah, thank you.
Awesome, thank you. Guys, if you have more questions for her, feel free to message her about it. We're gonna move on to the next presentation.